I can enable shorts. Let's do a short stream as well. Wait, is how is wait? What is this shit? No, my short stream is ass. Oh no. Um, how can I personalize my short stream? Learn more. Input your second stream key to use the vertical stream. Oh my god. Oh no. Wait, where are these options even? Hmm. Okay, so there are no cropping options. So it's just it's just a horrible crop, and that's it. And I'm gonna have to live with it. And it is so funny. Oh well. Okay. Oh well. Okay, so what have I done syntax wise that is so wrong in here that the language A hates it so much? Oh, it's just a semicolon, man. Okay, that was it. Okay, get rid of the semicolon. Let's make it work. Okay. What are we doing next? Expected type T found const T. Right. Um. There you go. Error unit is ignored. There we go. Late to the party. I thought Matrix was the alternative to Discord. Have you ever used Matrix? I find it unusable. Like I find it horrid. Oh, I see. So now if we do this, we need the. I'm gonna do this. Okay, so now we build. Can we actually run? Server is fine, as expected. Oh shit, I deleted too much. Oh well. So far, so good. We hit a corner case. Oh no, we hit a panic to do. Scene marker R. I think we might have hit a rate limit. What don't you like about it? Um, so I used Matrix for the first time at FOSDEM during the pandemic, and it was very messy. All the end-to-end encryption stuff made it so problematic for me to get an account running correctly. So what happened is that I joined from Firefox, and then it was FOSDEM. So at some point I had to like speak, but Firefox was having trouble with my microphone, so I wanted to log in from Chrome, and I closed Firefox before opening Chrome. And it turns out that if you add a new account that you claim to be the same person, then the previous account has to vouch for it. Otherwise, you're not going to see all the messages because they have been encrypted with the previous key, and so the new key is not going to be able to decrypt those messages. They need to be sent from the previous thing, but I had already closed my tab, so I had lost everything. So basically, I kept having for the full duration of FOSDEM this thing that kept nagging me about verifying my fucking second account, and I had no way of doing it. Then after that, I used Matrix for the second time at another conference called Handmade Seattle, where that time I was using a mobile client, so no more temporary web stuff. I was using my mobile client. I connected to it. We were about 200 people at the conference, so it was not a gigantic conference. Uh, I knew the organizer. The organizer had set up a Matrix server, so they were self-hosting the server, and it was running on a super beefy virtual machine. So like DigitalOcean. Cranked all the way up to like 100 plus more dollars a month worth of hardware, and the thing was having so much trouble working. We had again like 200 people using it, and it was pooping itself all over the place. More specifically, we were using chat to ask questions to speakers because some people were also watching online. So you know what? Let's add like another 100 people, another 200 people watching online who were also connected to the chat. So let's say 400 people. The chat just could not keep up. It was like struggling. And then I've seen is like they have a Python implementation of the server and it uses MongoDB and whatnot. Horrible, absolutely horrible. Then after the conference shut down those servers, my mobile application wouldn't work anymore because it would keep connecting to that server forever. So the only solution was to uninstall it, I guess, remove any local data and then reinstall it. Otherwise, there was no way for me to unblock it essentially. Uh I tried to use Matrix at my own conference, not directly because I had horrible experiences, but I did a bridge. I think I did a Discord to Matrix bridge, which was, I guess, kind of fine, just clunky as fuck. I tried myself to use Matrix with the IRC bridge. Again, not the greatest experience with that either. Um, I don't know. I don't love it. I had only mediocre experiences. The end-to-end encryption stuff, I get it, but it's not always necessary, and it just makes creating an account clunky as fuck. Like if I'm going to a conference, I just want the thing to work. I don't care about everything being encrypted end-to-end. Um, th- the software is horrible to run. Like I'm never gonna run a Matrix server myself. There's just no way. It's embarrassing that it cannot handle like 400 people at a conference with that setup. So I don't know. I'm sure there's now more implementations than there were before, um, but it seems just like, and maybe though some of those implementations are better, but I don't know. Overall, I don't have much faith in it, honestly. to me it seems those FOSS projects that are like for some reason just not good when it comes to user experience. I want a good user experience from my chat applications. I just cannot bear to have a shitty user experience. So we'll see where we land with Awebo, but bus error. Maybe I should fix this. Where does the name come from? I can tell you. I'm gonna enable it also for YouTube. So it's this bird called, it's a ptarmigan, and it's white, has red eyebrows, and it just says Awebo a lot. And that's it. That's the full story. That's where Awebo comes from. Um, and if you look at my terminal, you can see that I have an Awebo prompt, and it becomes a dead bird when the process fails. Well, has a non-zero exit code. So that's where Awebo comes from. Okay. So we have to solve that to do. Can we scroll down? Does scrolling down work? Okay, so this works. We're only missing the very uppermost, like going to the very end of history here. That crashes. So the refactoring has gone well. We only have regressed one corner case essentially. Let's fix it. And then we can move on to implementing the other stuff. And then we're going to need to test it a little bit. So I will do the work to artificially create situations where we need to load messages from the server. Also, we are going to have a slow server that takes, I think I'm going to change the server to take 5 seconds before replying to our message fetch requests. So that way we can take a good look at the loading processes. Where are my regression tests? We need to set up at least 3 meetings for that. Holy shit. Yeah. Okay. To do. So what are we to doing when we see a client request reply? What are we even requesting? Okay, we exceeded user action limit. Okay, that is fair. That is fair. Oh, you know what's happening? Because we shouldn't even be asking the server for anything. I think we should be sending one request to the server and that's it. What's happening is that when we hit here at the end, what's happening is that you're going to see, I think now, what you are gonna see is that we're gonna spam all these 3 requests very fast. I think you're gonna see 3 or 4 H requests coming one after the other because we are messing up state tracking a little bit. Okay, that's fair. So, um, who's at fault here? Well, who is at fault here, huh? At fault is oh, I know who is at fault. It's some code that was doing some of this stuff down here. There was some more code in here that was doing stuff, and we didn't properly replicate it. We still have count. So I would say that this we do if count is different than 0. We do this regardless. Then, if at some point we decided that we need to load some history, we do the history loading. But there was more state that we were messing around with. Okay, we need to fetch the. Let's take a look at the committed code because I'm. Um, because I broke it. Okay, so message list. Was there anything else? Loaded all new messages. Loaded. Yeah, there we go. This is the one that we kind of forgot about. So if we got 0 and or missing history, let me think about it for a second. Yeah, so if we loaded nothing, then we want to say that the loaded all messages is true. Mm, so we can turn it like this. If count is 0, then we loaded all messages. Yes. True. Oh, actually, uh, no. We have loaded all messages, all old messages. If it was count is 0, oh man. Okay, let me think about it for a second. We loaded all old messages if we got nothing, and we didn't find any missing message. Problem is that this one defaults to tail. Hmm. We could increase count in here artificially and say that if we enter in here, count is different than 0. Because the idea is, even if we didn't load anything, because we immediately found a missing message, well, we still haven't loaded everything. This is only true if we got an empty, like if the query got an empty reply, essentially. So the way it works, that, you know what, this might even be that it defaults to none. I think that the tail case is never going to happen. Wait, no, the tail case can happen if we exit the while loop without breaking. I guess we can do this. If we exit the while loop without breaking, if we exit the loop without breaking, meaning that we didn't find I've never seen an else on a while loop. And this is not unique to Zig. The else case is where you land if you exit the loop without breaking. It's kind of like you're searching for something, and then if you find it, you break. And if you didn't find it, you exit naturally. And so you can have an else case. That's the idea. For loops, I think, have also support for else. But I think that my logic is not correct. I think that I'm trying to express my logic succinctly and elegantly, and I'm failing hard. So if we end up in here, we could end up in here with count equals 0. And if count equals 0, more than this, I think the question is did we load every single message? Like, because we do what, 16 for the window. I think that more than checking for count being equal 0 or not, we should check for count being 16. So if count is 16, there might be more. Otherwise, there isn't. No, that is fine. That is true. Like this. Okay, let's see how this goes. There we go. Oh, but we're not scrolling down. So that's bad. We broke scrolling down because count equal different than 0. Count different than 0. So if it's false, it should stay false. I guess that's the idea. I think that if I don't insist in scrolling up, then we can scroll back down. I think that is the problem with that code. So if I go up, no, we triggered multiple loads that way. Hmm. You throw an exception and catch it. There are no exceptions in Zig. Oh, you know what? This needs to happen even if count is 16. It's kind of like this. There we go. And now watch me scroll down. No, we still cannot scroll down. Interesting. So we can scroll up. We're still failing to scroll down. Okay. I think the next problem is that I'm flipping this guy to false even though I shouldn't. There we go. Now it works. Okay, so we have fixed this. Man, this is so messy though. I don't know if you can simplify this. I just don't know if you can simplify this. Also, I think that this, you know what? I think that what I did is wrong because even if we, because this needs to run, even if we did encounter any of those other things. Hmm. Oh, this cannot be announced. Also, the oldest UID is probably not a const because if we are loading stuff from the database and we encounter one of these guys, no, well, we go all the way back to the bottom. What's the oldest UID now? Need to ask the question again. Need to do core message window oldest. Hmm. Okay. Okay. As ugly as it is, that's as good as I can make it. So this works. Let's try. Wait. Let's see what happens if we run it and we needs to fetch from the server. Fetching present from server. That is weird. Why are we fetching present from server? Uh I think that fetching present from server. Hmm. 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 If we loaded 16 messages, we don't need to ask anything from the server. That is a waste. You should go here. No, they should not. This should just not exist. If we loaded all 16 messages, then it means that there's more in the thing. So tail should not exist. I broke it. I broke it. Why? Because we could have done 16, but then got the other one. It's in the else. There we go. Okay. So this is not correct. Holy cow, is it complicated? That is essentially the same logic that I had before. It's just now uh I think we did simplify it, but it's still kind of complicated. I wish it was less complicated. I wish it wasn't less complicated, but what can you do? So if instead we want more present, now we need to fix the want more present case. And we also want to render loaders. Okay, you know what? The one more present case is complicated. I don't want to do it right away. Let's implement these like loading messages. So Let's run a slow server. So we're running a slow server. Let's see how it feels. Well, we need to remove local cache to feel it. It's slow, slower connecting, slower replying. We didn't feel the slowness too much because it gave us 64 messages at a time. So we were basically gonna block here only once. So here we're blocking, waiting, and then it works. Okay, so let's do a loading pop-up thingy. So DUI has a good example on how to set that up. These the right examples? No. There's a label somewhere. If show loading top. There we go. Where is this placed? This is placed after scroll.the which we also do in here. Okay, scroll data. We don't have scroll data. So let's procure scroll data. User scroll ampersand user scroll. That is interesting. We'll see about that. Expand horizontal means as content, as content style, data out, and scroll data. Yes. Did binary patching ever make its way into the compiler? Some. So I believe that binary patching works on Linux, but it's not fully working. I think the last you know what? I might be wrong. Actually, it might be fully working on Linux. So other platforms are lagging behind when it comes to incremental compilation. We need more time, but I think that on x86 64 Linux it should all work. I might be wrong though. Unfortunately, no, I don't do x86 64, but yeah, I can tell you that it's not yet on ARM, but it's coming. So, okay, we keep around scroll data, which then we can use in here. What does the dictate show loading top? It's c.client.state. It's more of a switch in this case. Well, you know what? Different than ready. Scroll data, correct scale, point physical, floating widget, init, loading top, loading history, But then we want one that says loading present. So how does it work? We switch. We also need, I think the gravity Y is what we want to switch on. Okay, let's see how this goes. Oh, the format string. Wait, the format string needs to be, well, why are we doing label no FMT? Okay, let's see how it goes. I expect to see a loading history floating thingy up here once we scroll up to around 40. It worked. We see loading history and it disappears when we once we do load history. And there's no loading present. Um, there is no loading present, but we can make that happen artificially. But first, we need to fix the other code path. Woof! What an adventure! But we're getting there. One last final thing. Holy shit! Whew. So we want to load more present. We use the appropriate query. I think we want this again. And I think we want to re-implement most of this logic. And then we want also the else. Now, we are scrolling towards the present. And if while scrolling towards the present, we load less than 16 messages, then we have reached the present. We have reached the present. Then, okay, so this message we were printing at random, so that's why that seemed a confusing message. I thought I needed to fix this, but it's just a bad log. Okay, so yes. Then what else can happen? Did we load anything at all? So if we loaded anything at all, we do want to say that we have paged out all messages. And we do want to say that scroll lock is visible. Scroll lock visible, okay. Then we're missing some more stuff, obviously, because we're missing this. Okay, this works. So this in theory works. Let's see if we didn't bake any stupid assumptions in here. Okay, we're just waiting old, and in here we're just waiting new. Oh, you know what that means though? It's not. Oh no. Okay, right. This is not what decides whether we should be up or down. It's being not in ready state, and whether we are looking for more present or more history that decides. So if we are loading anything, yes. And this is not a switch, this is an if. Well, 1.0. Yep. And then here is the same. Okay. So far, so good. Remove the cache. We should see loading up here as we scroll, as we're near the top. Yep. Loading present. We cannot scroll more up because there's nothing to scroll to while we're loading, but we should be able to scroll down. Let's see if we're capable of doing that. Yeah, we can move, so we are not like frozen. That's good. Now, what I want to test is having a hole in the middle. So I'm gonna turn a middle message into a message hole, and we'll see if it works. And then what else can I do to make it work? Then yeah, let's just add a hole. So like we take I don't know, like message 20, and we turn it into a hole. That one has ID 26. Oh, what is the missing message? 0, 1, 2, 3. 2 and 3. 329. Yeah. Now let's see if we load correctly. Yeah, so there was a lot of spam, so I wasn't sure. But yeah, we got a chat history. Fetching newer history from server from 29. Yeah. So they gave me newer history. I mean, it doesn't matter in this case if it gives me newer history or older history because I don't have a real hole, but that's good. So now I should be able to close this, go back into SQLite, run this query, but now kind is 2. And we should be able to see the same thing happen, except that this time we're going to load from um, 23 downwards. It says loading present, though. It should not be saying loading present. That part I still messed up. But yeah, so this time it gave me 29, 28, 27. Okay, so this works. Why did we say loading present? What more history should be true, though? We were not loading more present. We were definitely loading more. You know what? I'm going to log these values, I guess. Want history true, want present false, want history false, want present false. Okay, so the problem is that those variables, they're like edge triggers, right? So the problem is that those are edge triggers, so they're only valid for one frame. Um, shit. So that means that we either have more state. We well, one way or another, we need to have more state. Okay, that's a minor thing that we can do. I saw on Cream Seasile Reddit that Zig will never ever reach 1.0, and that's the only thing that will ever give Zig any value, and thus no one should ever consider using it. Oh no, your head's broken because of that. You should go on Hacker News. Wait, is Creamsicle Reddit Hacker News, or is that actually Reddit? Because on Hacker News, there's another guy saying that Jai is gonna destroy Zig as soon as it gets released. So you better watch out. Jai is gonna get you and me and everybody else who ever considered, even just considered using Zig. You're gonna be all like reverse. I don't know, reverse raptured. How to make a girlfriend? Somebody's asking on YouTube how to make a girlfriend. Use Jai, man. No, of all languages, don't use Jai. Jai is probably not the best language for making a girlfriend. Oh man. Um, the only language for making a girlfriend is what's it called? The one that the Nix uses. The Nix language. This is a creamsicle, notice a color scheme. GRHT refused to connect. Sorry, this domain hates me. I am using a deprecated browser. That is true. Mostly of white with a hint of orange. I see. Well, what can you do? There's everything on Hacker News. Um, all kinds of opinions. So we need more state. It's annoying though, because if we need more state, then it means that we're gonna make this thing more annoying. Waiting. So this is now like weighting new towards present, weighting new towards old, something like that. This is weighting present towards present, weighting present towards past, weighting history towards past, weighting Is there even such a distinction? Yes. The scroll direction, essentially. Oh, now we don't even know. Hmm. So that means that you give me the direction. But I guess this it means that this client state management cannot be done in here anymore. So you guys are coming with me. Oh shit! What did I write up there? Yeah, password. Okay, okay. So that was fine. This is correct now. What's the next problem? Core forward 9. Chat history. Oh, we actually don't know. Wait a second. We actually don't know. It's the same fucking request, so we just don't know. Hmm. No assertion. So I don't know what engage is. Okay, does this work at all? Yeah, we're good. Okay, so far so good. Let's put a hole in the middle. Yes. Wait, loading present. Wait a second. Fuck. No. Oh wait. I never fixed the last thing that I need to fix. That is fine. Um waiting past towards past. Waiting past towards present means a 1.0. Waiting present towards past and waiting past towards present means 0.0. Hello, Diablo. It's a site that used to review the top stories on Hacker News as they describe it. It would absolutely roast the insane takes across the most popular stories of the week. I see. So there we go. Um, Waiting for. Well, the problem is that it's 2 bits. One is, are we trying to load older history scrolling up, or are we trying to load modern history scrolling down? Then the question is, when we're scrolling down, are we waiting for? You know what? Actually, now that I realize, we don't need all this information in state. Wait, because after we pull this out, we just pass down newer here. In the direction, like this is the direction. Yeah, you know what? Okay. Well, thank you for the comment. It made me realize that I really don't need all of this. Yeah, this is enough. Ready, waiting present, waiting past. Yeah, thank you. Which can be turned back into this. One of the best cues for reading too much HN. I've never seen that. I'm working on the refactoring. Is there a way to check if the C allocator is leaking memory? Valgrind. Run the program under Valgrind and see what it says. If you're on macOS, there. Oh, wait a second. That's macOS, right? There's no Valgrind on macOS. Fuck. Uh, I think there might be some macOS tuning that is comparable to Valgrind. Yeah, instruments might have something about that, but I never used it myself. I don't know how this stuff works. Okay, so there's nothing interesting for us in here. Let's fix. Let's first corrupt the database. Okay, what I'm expecting to see is finally appear a loading history. Loading history. There we go. And next, we do this again, but we set this to 3. I mean, this is kind of a silly test. I already know with good confidence. Then this is now going to do the same. This is going to, again, tell me that it's loading history up here, which it should. Perfect. Perfect. Um, then what else? Then we need to somehow test this towards the present. So how do we make this work towards the present? Uh, so we change channels to by default load a different offset. So we go in chat and we say that chat by default has as the last newest um, like 25. Will that work? We set that to 25. That will load 25, but it will put the scroll bar at the bottom. Will the scroll bar try to load? Fuck it. I don't know. We'll try. This is just so that we can test a piece of behavior. I want to see that it shows loading at the bottom, loading present. I think it should still say loading history now that I think about it, even if it should just change placing, like with the positioning, now that I think about it. Um, so I'm going into SQLite and I'm corrupting message with ID. That needs to be bigger than 25. So it's, I don't know. Well, actually, we could corrupt something that it's already in there. Okay, let's see what happens with 29. I'm doing weird stuff. It might not work out at all the way I was hoping. Well, so we did load history. Wait a second. We did load history, but I did it show the thing? Is it gonna show loading at the bottom? No. So we did request stuff to the server, but we were not showing anything at the bottom. That's not good. Why were we not showing anything at the bottom? Is 0, maybe 0 is wrong? Okay, maybe this works, but I put let me put 1 here also in this case, just so that we can see if we did something wrong with the just the offset math there. Oh, maybe it's not 0, maybe it's like -1 or something. I don't know. Okay, let's see if it shows at the bottom once we click. No, it showed at the okay, it did show, sorry, it showed at the top. Okay, so it does show, it's just that 0 is the wrong number. What is the right number then? From gravity y. Like from gravity y should uh PT point physical. from gravity y. So maybe this is not what we need to change. Maybe it's this that we need to change. Maybe this should be if waiting passes r dot y, else it's r dot y minus r dot height. How about that? No, it was still at the top. Fuck. Okay, I don't know how to do it correctly. How do we move this this thing at the bottom? I don't know. I would expect it from gravity y to work. What if I do 0.5? Very small change. I think I was onto something. So I think that this should be 1.0 hard coded. I think that this point should be different because this centers the x coordinate there. And I think it's the y coordinate that we need to change. We have bottom left, bottom right. I think this should be it. If I divide this by 2, then we should be centered. Let's see if we are centered. No, we were up there. What is going on, man? Okay. We just don't know how to solve it. I just don't know how to solve it. I'm clearly misunderstanding what's going on. But the good news is that this works. So we can go undo the mess that we were doing here. In theory, we should have robust message loading now. Uh, is there any last change that I want to make before pushing? Yes. Let's see if we can streamline the creation of these markers. So, um, hmm. So the server in host as a starting point, when creating a delta, instead of adding one extra message, okay, where are we? We're in sync here. Okay. Should the server send those type of messages? Or should the client create them artificially? It's okay. I'm mostly wondering for myself. There's an advantage in having these messages be like these markers be created by the server because it means that the server is not going to send text when it doesn't need to. So what we can do is in compute delta, oh, but we are doing this. Never mind, I take it back. Yeah, client does that. What do we do with the oldest UID? Oh, we were doing this. Okay, so we don't do this anymore. We don't keep track of that anymore. Missing messages older. Okay, missing messages. Missing messages older. Hey, I started working on the web client, but there are compiler errors in IO.threaded and POSIX for WASM. Yeah, that's what I expected. Should I open a draft PR with a stack trace or comment in the web client issue? Um, Let me think about it for a second. So here's the problem. It is normal that you hit POSIX errors for WASM because in WASM, you do not have a libc. You could target WASM WASI. So you could target the I don't know what even what to call it, the WASI OS, ABI. Well, in any case, you could target WASM WASI. That would that would mean that you do have the ability to do IO, etc. And that would probably reduce the amount of errors that you get, maybe. But, but we are not targeting WASM WASI. So the way this would work, the way this has to work is that you need to fork io.threaded. Like, you literally need to copy the implementation of io.threaded and implement it for WebAssembly. Well, a subset of it, not necessarily all of it, but you need to implement a subset of it that wires those syscalls to um, basically functions that WebAssembly expects to find in the ecosystem defined by JavaScript. Because, for example, in WebAssembly, in just WASM in the browser, for example, you're not going to have. Let me think about it for a second. Well, you're definitely not going to have the ability to open TCP connections. For example, you're not going to have the ability to open the UDP connections. So at that point, there are like two ways for us to deal with that. One is we somehow, hey Giacomo, hello, thank you for the raid. Hello everybody, welcome. So we are doing a open source Discord alternative. I'm finalizing scrolling messages. This is the greatest achievement. I've never made anything more fancy than this in my life, and I don't know if I ever will. But look at this: we're scrolling messages, and we are paging them in and out as we scroll up and down. It's like, you wouldn't believe how freaking complicated this is. This should not be this complicated, but it is. In any case, that's my, I don't know what to call it, piece de la résistance, as the French would say. But in the meantime, we're talking about what it takes to make our WebAssembly build of our Discord alternative client. Because, without la piece de résistance, thank you. We were talking about what it would take to build our client for WebAssembly, because we want to offer a web client. Except that we're pulling an inverse electron. So instead of making a web client and then when you want a desktop client, we give you the web client, but in a trench code. We make the native version first, the desktop client first, and then we build it for WebAssembly and we run it in the browser. That's the general idea. There's a lot of details that you have to get right, though, to actually get there. By the way, you can't open a binary in instruments that is not a signed up bundle. Jesus Christ. So here Jim was actually trying some of the ideas that I pointed out, and yeah, like issues were encountered along the way, which makes sense. So as I was saying, we have two options. Either we keep IO, basically we have a fork of IO.threaded that does everything that IO.threaded does, but wired through JavaScript essentially, or alternatively, in WebAssembly, we don't call into IO to perform certain operations. So instead of doing IO dot I don't know, net open socket, instead we call some other function directly. But I think ultimately I think essentially that would get us to the same end result, just with extra steps. So I do think that the answer is we need to fork IO.threaded. So here's my recommendation. Write a simple application that uses your fork of IO.threaded. You can gut it out. Like when I say fork IO.threaded, maybe forking might even hint at the wrong thing. My suggestion is make an IO implementation that we plan to make it work, to have it work roughly like IO.threaded does, meaning multi-threading, etc. But gut it out completely and leave a bunch of panic to-dos, and then tackle all the things one by one. And by the way, it doesn't have to be you who does the full work, obviously. So I guess your core point would be um, implementing printing to standard error, for example, which you can wire to printing to the console. Then, for example, you should implement thread spawning. That should not be problematic because in theory, you should be able to do whatever that blog post was doing. In theory, that would be step 2, I guess. And then step 3 would be to implement the networking stuff, but by wiring it through browser code, through JavaScript code, where basically opening a TCP connection means opening um, a web transport connection in streaming mode. I don't think there is anything that we do in Zig that we cannot make work with the browser. I can see that maybe some things that we do would be like extra steps, like those real implementations of UDP stuff use types that describe datagrams that have a bunch of flags and options that make sense if you're doing real UDP, but we are not going to be doing real UDP. So you could argue that in that case, it might make sense to have a abstraction that allows us to use simplified types in our WebAssembly code, because otherwise we would have to fake all those types in a way that is, I don't know, just unnecessary, maybe. But I think that is the idea. So, so Jimmy, if you're still around, uh, I would um, I would definitely comment on the issue to report your learnings, and then I would wait for the PR. I would say that commenting on the issue and discussing things that you discover and like blockers is the most important thing. Yeah. Thank you. Missing messages all there. Okay, so this is good in sync. Then, where else do we get messages? We get messages in fetch history. Chat history get. We ask a given direction and then we get a reply. In the reply, what do we have in the reply? Hey, new Sammy, thank you for the Prime sub. So we have origin, we have channel ID, we have history. Let's have direction as well, because we're gonna need that. Direction is gonna be uh I guess we can define it like this. Older and newer. Although this is not necessary, you know, server doesn't have to tell. We know when we save chat history and we do a bunch of upserts, So when we get chat history len equals 1, actually we can do it like this. There we go. I think this is better. Here's what we want to do. This is not it. This is the size of a window, -1. This is Awebo channel window size. If this was a full batch, then we need to look at the, I don't know, first 2 messages. So if 0 is greater than, so we're doing 29, 28, 23, so we're missing messages towards older, towards newer. Okay. Uh, I'm curious, when would it be a good idea to use tagged unions? Because I never worked with those before, and Zig is the first language that I'm trying this. I programmed in C a little bit. I mostly use structs and rarely unions. That's pretty much why I don't know. Secondly, I'm not sure when would you want to return an array or an array list. Because currently I try to return an array whenever possible and use lists only inside the functions which I then deallocate. Okay, I have a few answers. So when do you want to use tagged unions? Here's one non exhaustive answer, but a good starting rule of thumb to get used to tagged unions. Tagged unions are good because they allow you to make sure that given extra state is not available when it's not relevant. If you don't have tagged unions, then you, for example, in some code here, previously, I had a bunch of variables. I had some variables that would hold a message index, and that variable would be sometimes a variable that you would need to consult to understand what to do. But there was a case where that variable meant nothing. So whatever, whatever value happened to be in there wouldn't matter. So if you namespace essentially those variables inside of a tagged union, you hide them when they're not relevant, and it helps with clarity a lot sometimes. And there's no performance hit essentially because you have to branch in any case on what is the current case. I guess it depends. Depending on what you're doing, there might be the like minuscule performance hit that you normally wouldn't care at all about, but it's mostly not even that. So that's one technique. There's more, of course, but that one is, I think, is a good starting point. So when you have occasionally a bunch of variables that are not always active, see if you can turn them into this concept of a state where you are in one of multiple cases, and then you put the variables that are on in that case only in cases where it matters. That I think is the best starting point for tagged unions. For the other thing, you said an interesting thing for the second half of the question. You said something very interesting. You programmed in C and you return arrays. Do not return arrays. or rather, occasionally maybe you will want to return arrays, but you normally do not want to return arrays. And to be clear, if by returning an array you mean this, like you mean that you have a function foo that takes maybe some arguments and returns an array of 5 foos, that maybe sometimes you want to do, but not all the time. And here's why I'm stressing this point, because in C, arrays become pointers. In Zig, arrays are value types. So uh, returning an array of 5 foos means if foo is big, let's imagine that foo is a 64 kilobyte struct. It means that whenever you return this, you're copying 5 times 64 kilobytes worth of memory. So be aware. Arrays are not pointers in Zig. Arrays are values. If you want to return a pointer, you can do pointer, you can do const pointer, but at that point you need to be careful because now you're returning a pointer, so that pointer cannot point to local memory. You mean return a slice? Okay, understood. But I wanted to be clear because if you come from C and you're implicitly used to this idea that array types degrade out, I don't remember what the exact terminology for it is, but that basically array types turn into pointers automatically. That's not the case in Zig, so that would be a big foot gun. So should you return a slice or should you return an array list? Well, I guess you want to return an array list if you plan to append to it some more, right? But usually, if that is the case, what ends up happening is that you accept an array list as an input. So what I would expect is that if for your function would make sense to return an array list, it probably would also make sense for it to accept one as input. And it would be more flexible to do so because the caller can decide to make one on the fly, or it could inherit one from somewhere else. So I would tell you to consider, and it's not guaranteed that this is good advice, but consider turning your function that you want to return an array list into one that accepts one. So try this, see how it goes. As others have pointed out, if you have an array list and you want to basically empty it, and when you have an array list, it's doing amortize allocation. So maybe you're using your list up to, oh my god, okay, Flow doesn't want to collaborate with selection, but it might be that you're using your array up to this point, but then more space will be allocated for you in order to amortize for future appends that you might want to do. So be careful that if you just refer around to list.items, you will be keeping around also this unused memory. Maybe it's fine, maybe not. If it's not fine, you will want to use what Demon was suggesting, which is list.toOwned slice. What this does is resize the array list to get rid of all the unused memory and return just a normal slice. Also, toOwned slice, I believe, can fail. So I think you need to give it a GPA. Am I going insane? Yeah, it wants a GPA and it can fail. So keep that in mind. Other than this, I don't know. I think it becomes a matter of understanding, or just getting a feeling for what you want things to look like. I have other question regarding array lists. Go for it. Wait, first of all, I thought I fixed the scrolling, and then now this is misbehaving. Fuck. Um. Okay, what I'm doing here is problematic. This query needs to be made more complicated to support what I'm trying to do now. Also, right. Did I not fix the starting point? I thought I did. I did fix the starting point. Why are we behaving weird? Also, I need to make the server fast again. Yeah, what is going on? Why are we asking? Why are we asking chat history? We have this chat history. I broke it. I somehow broke it. Let me think about it for a second. One problem is that we should not unconditionally add a missing history message if we already have that ID. If the ID that we see is already present, then we don't make it an yeah. So, okay. So here's how it works. We need to do it here. If you're not at the very end, we just add the message normally without thinking much. Otherwise, we need to do more stuff. What is the problem now? Okay, kind is msg.kind. Okay, then in here we need to do more stuff. I have a start that is essentially a context to which I append some elements, but also I have some lists that store those same objects in a different fashion. So currently, what I do is that I have a list of actual object and then store everything else as pointers to that list. But you can't because that list is gonna resize and your pointers are gonna invalidate. I'm assuming that your list will. I'm assuming that your thing is an array list and thus will resize. If that is not a problem, so if instead it is not something that risk being reallocated, that's fine. Um, I'm used to see where I manipulate memory instead of objects. So I just pass pointers and the point to the same place. While in Zig, I'm struggling with this a little. Yeah, you should be able to implement. You should be able to have essentially the same system that you had in C, also in Zig, if that's what you want. Uh, it should not be problematic. So be careful that you cannot store pointers to elements in an array list that you append to because the array list will resize, and by resize and when resizing, it will potentially reallocate. Um, oh, you get segfaults. Okay, well, here's an easy fix. Change your pointers. There are like three approaches to this problem. One is you pre-allocate the size of the array list so that you don't have to allocate afterwards. if you happen to have that knowledge. You probably will not, but occasionally you do have that knowledge beforehand, so you can say, you know, there's a neat version flavor of it, but there's also like a um, something like ensure total capacity, where you can just grow the array list, and then after that you can do append assume capacity. And if you do append assume capacity, also is infallible and doesn't require a GPA, because you're not gonna allocate anything. So that is option number one. It's somewhat niche. Problem is I don't know the count of those objects. That is fair. That is fair. That is normally the case. Solution number two, um, use indices. As Dimon was saying here, instead of placing elsewhere pointers into the array list, put elsewhere indices into the array list. The upside also is that if you don't plan to have more than 4 billion of those things, you can also use a U32. So you save yourself 4 bytes for every pointer. That is a trick that is used a lot in Zig parsers. So for example, I have here, not this, but uh, this is this is a parser for my language that it's kind of like a JSON alternative, and my AST is a slice of nodes. And the way it works is that the parser has an array list of nodes, and a node points to other nodes by index. And then when the parser is done parsing, so at the end of the parsing operation, maybe, hello, where do we put it? Um, oh, never mind. It's in here. We make a parser, pd init, return p.parse. I'm trying to see where is it that I do the to own slice, and I don't see it. Well, oh, there we go. There we go. In finalize. So the parser then calls to own slice once it's done parsing and creates an AST. So the AST is basically an immutable parser. Is when I still want to mutate those nodes, and then we turn everything into a AST, which assumes that you're not gonna fuck around with nodes anymore at that point. But yeah, as you can see, I'm using U32 indices. Pretty cool. That makes parsers fast. There's a third solution. The third solution is to use a segmented list. So there's a variant of array list. Do we still have it in the standard library? We don't. Okay, we used to have a data structure that basically worked like think of it as an array list, right? But instead of reallocating, you make a linked list of arrays, and that would be something that you could have pointers into, because every chunk never gets reallocated. Okay, then people maybe have also some other interesting solutions. So, well, that's what I got. Oh God, why do I have these many changes still locally not committed? We'll look into that another time. Okay, so so when we're at the very last one, we want to first see if we have it. Because if we have already this guy, Inspector Gadget, yeah. If we have this guy already, then we don't want to put a missing message marker. So we don't necessarily need to create. And I guess we need to just get the message. So we need a query to get a single message in a sense to see if it is there. So const. Okay, let me think. What would be the most amazing query that solves this problem? That solves this problem for me. The most amazing query that solves this problem for me would be a query that attempts to perform an upsert, but bails out if the message already exists and no, the period. It bails out if the message already exists. So I guess this is an insert if not existing. Yeah, so it's not an upsert. Yeah, it's not an upsert at that point. Well, actually, let me think about it. Yeah, it's not an upsert. Insert on conflict abort. Okay. Let's see if we have something to that tune in common queries. So we have select max UID. We have select host info channels. Select. Insert user. Insert channels. Insert roles. Insert host KV. I would even argue then maybe we should stop trying to upsert as soon as we hit something that we can override. You know what? Okay, I don't know what the best solution is, but let's see what we have here. Insert into messages values. Kind of exec. So we want this. Insert message. Or abort. Do you put on conflict abort in here? Or do you put it at the end? Well, I guess I can go figure it out myself. Ah, my eyes. Not functions. Syntax. Insert. Wait, there's also insert or abort. Or ignore. Insert or replace. Wait, are my upserts insert or replaces? No, I have on conflict do update. Wait, can I just do insert or replace? Wait, what the fuck? Wait, can somebody explain to me insert or? Wait, the initial insert keyword can be replaced by replace or insert or action to specify an alternative constraint conflict resolution algorithm to use during that one insert command. Huh? For compatibility with MySQL, the parser allows the user a single keyword replace as an alias for insert or replace. Yeah, I mean, okay, but so you can do insert into table values, and then you can do insert into table select, insert into table default values. So this is all delightful. See the separate upsert documentation for the additional training syntax that can use that can cause an insert to behave as an update if the insert would otherwise violate a uniqueness constraint. The upsert clause is not allowed on insert default values. Conflict resolution algorithm. Conflict cause. Oh, so these things have on conflict. Wait, that may be so. Maybe that instead of having this complicated shit with cascading behavior, maybe this is just on conflict replace. Wait, would this whole query just be simplified enormously, but just being able to do on conflict replace? When a unique or primary key constraint violation occurs, the replace algorithms deletes pre-existing rows that are causing the constraint violation prior to inserting or updating the current row, and the command continues executing normally. Yeah, that's what I should have done all along. Delete triggers fire if and only if recursive triggers are enabled. The update hook is not invoked for rows that are deleted by the replace conflict resolution strategy. Does not replace. So so I hated having to copy paste this every single time on conflict ID, on conflict handle. So that means I can do on conflict whatever replace. Okay, in any case, wait, I think I saw a message from Jim. Posted a comment on the client issue. Yes, web client issue. Okay, let me take a look at that. Holy cow, you never stop learning with databases, huh? That's not it either. Oh, wait, after copy pasting the DVUI web app example. Okay, so um yeah. Okay. I think this, this might also have to do. I would say this before we can fix this stuff, DVUI has to fix it. That is a good point. I remember that DVUI had some stuff. Um, can't SQLite do stored procedures? Mm, in the context of SQLite, stored procedures are not that interesting. The way it's embedded in your own process. So what you do is that you prepare your statements once at the beginning, and then you're kind of done. Yeah, so DVUI needs to fix it. After DVUI fixes it, and maybe there is overlap in what DVUI needs to do and what we need to do somewhat. Um, but yeah, that's definitely the starting point. So let's see. After values, what's the best way of implementing recursive operations like DFS and BFS iteratively? Currently, I have custom stack type that works on static arrays, but maybe there's a better solution. Well, you can use an array list as your stack. Mm, there is a good question. I don't know what the answer is in super general terms. Like what would be the best interface to a super generic DFS? I don't know. I don't know. In my case, in the past, I've seen. So here's what I would say: use an array list, and then you delegate choosing where the memory comes from to the allocator, because you use an array list, and then whoever called internally, and then whoever calls you will pass in an allocator, and they're going to be able to pass a normal allocator, an array, an arena allocator. There's also std.heap.stack fallback allocator. Stack fallback allocator keeps a number of bytes in the stack, which can be, that basically speed up cases where your stack doesn't have to, well, whatever you have to put in, allocate in there doesn't grow too much. And then whenever stuff grows too much, it starts using the heap. So then basically you leave that choice to whoever gives you an allocator. I think that is a reasonable way of going at it. Can you explain about the Awebo, the stack you used and will be available for the public? So yes, Awebo will be available for the public. My stack is SQLite, Zig. I'm using a framework for the GUI called DVUI, which does unlimited mode GUI, multi-platform. That's kind of it. If you have other questions about how Awebo works, I'm happy to answer. But like, if you're asking me, where's Kafka? Where's WebRTC? Where's MongoDB? Where's Redis? Where's RabbitMQ? Um, the answer is there's none of this stuff. It does not sound very web scale, does it? Yeah. Also, no Kubernetes. This software has no Kubernetes. I don't know why. Every software out there recently, be careful about replacing SQLite. As far as I know, it's basically a delete plus insert. So you're saying that it's worse than doing an on conflict update? It's better to. You're saying that the other query is better? If you have cascading deletes, they will happen. There, we have no cascading deletes in the client for the message table. We absolutely do not have them. Without Redis, will the app become slow by any chance? Good question. I'll have Gray Actor answer the question for me, if he doesn't mind. He's my performance lieutenant for this stream. Okay, so my dreams of not having this super fucking ugly query are over then. Fine, for now. No, because fun fact, there's literally no way to have code that's slow in Zig. True words, true words. So insert message or abort. Okay. Uh, even my Zig bubble sort is fast. Yeah. So I don't know. Will the server be slow without Redis? Hopefully not. On conflict abort the transaction. Fuck. Thank you. So is there on conflict? Who cares? What's the on conflict? Who cares? Oh, ignore. Ignore. Okay. Thank you. Okay. That's not bad. But let's see. Okay, let's make it work, and then let's see if we like broke everything or what. No field name reactions. Oh, not doing great. Oh wait, syntax error. Near ignore. Hmm. What does it not like about my query? Hmm. Insert values on conflict do. Oh, do ignore. I mean, it doesn't exactly roll off the tongue as the perfect English, but fine. So that's not it. But this says that ignore exists. Okay, let me reread what we can do. Insert or where's the conflict stuff? Abstract clause. Do nothing. Yeah. Okay, so what's the difference between insert or do stuff versus on conflict ignore? Ignore will even ignore constraints violations. So we still start at a random spot. That should not happen. I don't know why this is happening. So we do scroll down to 99, but we load stuff that we should not be loading. Okay, what the fuck? What the fuck is happening? Um, how is it possible that we're fucking this up so much? So let me think about it for a second. What are we doing in here that is so horribly wrong? I think I left somewhere some temporary change that I forgot to fix. I think I broke what makes me scroll all the way down. That is the first thing that I broke in chat panel. If first load or client new messages and stick to bottom, client new message is false, scroll offset vertical. Somehow this doesn't seem to be triggering when it should. But I didn't change much. Then I think I also got wrong the direction of something. I think that there is something that is stored as newer instead of older. So let's go into sync. Missing message is older. I'm really weirded out by the fact that we're not scrolling at the bottom. Really, these I don't understand. Okay, enough with the slow server. Why are we not scrolled at the bottom? Why are we not scrolled at the bottom? Loaded 0 history messages from database. Oldest UID equals 42. Loaded 0 history messages from DB. Oldest UID 1. Oldest UID 42. Okay. Yeah, the GitHub repository for Awebo is a mirror. Man, we were so close to have to being done, but we added this last new tiny change that is now causing all kinds of havoc. So first of all, also if we do sync of messages here, we want to do the same. So let's also fix this. That is for sure. Um, where did we change this earlier? We earlier changed this somewhere. That was in when getting message history, I'm guessing. So that is in core. Yeah. So this is where we want this. Was there a regression in Zig master related to perf? I don't know. Um, IO evented is not as fast as it should be, and people have not yet diagnosed why yet. Other than that, I don't know. Hmm. I'm still really weirded out by this choice. Oh, wait a second. If we have the messages loaded in memory already, then we go from 99 correctly, and then this breaks. Okay, we have made some progress, but broke something else. Almost there. Almost there. Hi, Christopher. In your last stream, you mentioned about using web transport for Awebo instead of WebSocket. Do you have any thought or plan yet on that since Zig doesn't have HTTP3? Are you going to hand roll or use existing C/Rust library? Yeah, Zig doesn't have HTTP3. Personally, I would be happy. It would be good enough for me to just steal a C implementation of HTTP3 and just use that. That being said, here's what I'm realizing. The client, so we only care about web transport. We only care about web transport in the web client. When we're doing a native desktop client, we don't care about web transport. So we don't care about that library or anything related to it. In that case, we're good. In the web client, we will build for WebAssembly. We will use the browser's HTTP3/web transport implementation. So so that means that in the client we don't need to do anything because we'll basically have callbacks from JSON from JavaScript and like opaque pointers essentially that will represent that will allow us to interact with the web transport connection. That leaves the server. The server will have to have an HTTP3 implementation for it to be able to accept those kind of connections. Unfortunately. And we want the server to start using IODO Demented at some point, most likely. As long as the server is using IODO Threaded, that's gonna be fine because then we can take a C library and use it with blocking IO and it's gonna be fine. But the moment that we want to use a non-blocking implementation, then C code will be much harder to integrate, and we will have a reason to want to have a native Zig version. And I don't want to write a Zig HTTP3 implementation. Look, I've already done HTML. Can I please have a break from web shit? Please. So, there's a good C1 I wanted to use, but hard to create with async IO. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Quick and HTTP3 library. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the path is going to be in that case. I mean, it's obvious that eventually we're going to need to have some HTTP3 going on in the Zig ecosystem, right? So somebody has to do this sooner or later. I sincerely hope it's not going to have to be me, but somebody will have to. Yeah, there's what we were talking about, that there is a somebody was mentioning using an Nginx as some kind of terminator for this stuff. So could reverse proxy from Nginx or Caddy, but the problem is I don't think you can reverse proxy and still be able to open a web transport connection or a web transport like UDP thing, essentially. So what happens if you click on that view codes button at the top? No need to read the text, just click the button real quick. Quick. View codes. Haha. Oops, I misclicked. I mean, the proxy would be useful if somehow the proxy was able to strip all the weirdo HTTP3 bullshit and just act as if it was a UDP connection, a UDP socket on our end. At that point, a proxy could help, but also we don't want to have a dependency on Nginx. Um, so long story short, I don't have an answer. The good news is that in any case, we're blocked on DVOI, and then we're going to be blocked on IO.threaded. So until those unblock, there's no point in worrying about what's going on with web transport. We could maybe temporarily jerry rig it. And I don't know, try to use WebSockets for everything, even though we shouldn't. That would be hilarious. That would really be hilarious. Why currently C is seemingly the only language that supports dynamic libraries? Because dynamic libraries require cooperation from the operating system, and operating systems have decided that they only want to implement that shit once and using C lingo, and that's just how it is. I mean, you could definitely make your own dynamic library system, but you wouldn't be able to do all the things that you can do. Like a dynamic library means loading machine code into your address space. So the OS has to agree that it's fine to execute those memory pages. Then if like there's a bunch of stuff that where basically C and the operating system collude to make that work. So it's definitely something much more complicated than just a calling convention. And I would say also, lastly, I think one reason why dynamic dependencies have dynamic libraries have not seen a lot more development on that front as of late. It's also because, I don't know, static linking is generally good. I understand that our use cases that you do genuinely solve with a dynamic library, but in general, people are fine with static linking, and so it seems that nobody wanted to make that more complicated. With one caveat, if I remember correctly, Apple with Swift has made their own super complicated dynamic linking stuff working for Swift and iOS, so that basically you wouldn't need to have a full copy of the Swift standard library loaded into every separate app. I remember that this was like a big thing many years ago, but they're the only ones. They're the only ones that have worked on this stuff, and I can tell you that's gonna work with macOS and iOS because the OS really likes Swift for some reason. Go do that shit on Windows and Linux, you're not gonna have a good time. Those OSs don't like Swift remotely remotely enough to want to support that stuff. Last thing, more recently, I think that the way people approach dynamic library kind of use cases is by using WebAssembly, because DLLs have also the problem that they're like security holes, right? You load a DLL, and if the DLL is malicious, well, now the DLL has access to your entire memory space. Good fucking luck. So in cases where you kind of want some boxing, um, I think lately people have started like basically using WebAssembly. So you basically make a WebAssembly environment and then you load the quote unquote dynamic module as a WebAssembly blob. And so now you have some boxing. Now the thing is not going to be able to, steal all your passwords and whatnot. Because DLL have almost no fucking sandboxing model. So you either fully trust the DLL or you don't, or you're not going to be able to use it. Well, without having, without having the thing steal your data. That would be a fun experience. Yeah. Yeah, you could probably write a kernel extension that tries to make something like that work, but Zig doesn't have a stable ABI in any case. So some very evil Apple employee could write a Linux kernel module that uses the Swift ABI, but with Zig we don't have that. We still use the C ABI, so when necessary. Okay, so I guess my starting, like, the first thing that I need to solve is why are we even showing messages? Oh, I know what's happening. Okay, so here's what's happening. When we don't have the data loaded locally and we click on the channel, then we don't have anything to load. So this code here, the first time around, literally loads nothing because there is nothing for us to load. And that is a problem. Or rather, maybe, but that is fine. So, you know what I'm realizing then? That means that then we have in any case to handle in here the case where everything is empty, no matter what. So then the question for the audience is, when everything is empty, are we asking the server for more history or for more present? No, what I just said is wrong because that's not exactly what's happening. I mean, it is potentially a possibility if you click on the channel fast enough, but that's not what's happening. Wait. This is wrong. Um, we do sync, we do a channel sync with the server. So we have in the database that data. Why do we load it wrong? Okay, let me see this. Somehow we loaded it wrong. SQLite 3. What do we have in here? I do have all of them, all the way down to 36. I do have them all the way down to 36. I would argue that static linking is even worse for security because you're stuck with the version that the app is compiled with. Sure. Every time there is a bug discovered by one of the dependencies, you're basically forced to rebuild everything. I guess on paper. In practice, what happens if you have the dynamic dependencies? It's always fucking broken all the time because people fuck around with the dynamic dependency because people think that they can give you a different version of the dynamic library, the one that ideally would fix whatever security bug, and then it craps itself. Related to this, by the way, which is interesting, Dynamic linking also has the problem that the dynamic linker location is not even the same on all Linuxes. So you can't have a dynamic executable that works on all Linuxes. You can have a static executable that works on all Linuxes, but not one that depends on dynamic linking. So we plan, for example, for Awebo to have I should say Awebo. For Awebo, we have we plan to have a TUI client that we build fully statically, so that client is going to work wherever you place it, while the dynamic linking one is not going to work on NixOS without patching the executable or building it directly on NixOS. It's probably not going to work on some other freaking distro, and so there's so many problems with dynamic linking in practice. um, and that plays also into games, like games even on Linux run through Proton, because a video game on Linux needs that, a native game on Linux that wants to use the GPU has to do dynamic linking normally, and that makes it brittle, completely brittle, because you swap out machine code and you always get a mystery mix. To add to that, also distro maintainers like to mess with your software. So it might even be that you get not only a different version of the dynamic library, that dependency that you wanted, but also you get one that has been patched. So, all kinds of things happen. Okay, I don't get why we see 36 in there. I'm gonna add some logging because this blows my mind. Select chat history. So we're going down. Oh, was I dumb all along? Last newest. You know what? Let's stop thinking. Let's start debugging. Hmm. Absurd. Wait, why am I not seeing my changes? Oh, wait, is the problem because this is not triggering even though it should? Hmm. Loading from last newest, and it does nothing. Okay, why does this not? Why does this end up doing nothing? Hmm. Why does this end up doing nothing? Did I break like the order of things? Channel below UID limit. No, this is fine. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, you know what? Wait. Maybe we hit the brake right away. Maybe the problem is that we hit the brake right away. Yeah, look. Loading message 105. Oh my fucking god. I solved the mystery. The problem is that it's not the last message, the one that is suspicious. It's the very first one. It's the very first one. It's the very first one. God damn it. Okay, so that's why this code was S. Yeah, because we insert from oldest to newest. Mm. So it means that we need to insert this stuff right away. The first message is the one that has this. I guess we could ask the server to sort them differently, but could we ask the server to sort them differently? No. Oh, it's just how we sort them. It's just how we keep them in memory. We could iterate them backwards. Hmm. So if it's the first message, we do insert or ignore. If it's the first message and total len is um, and for now, if we're doing a sync, we actually know, I think, because a sync always goes backwards. So it's gonna be this. Hmm, what did they do now? Oh, so first message like this, and then upsert all the other ones. Okay. Does this fix the build? If we build, then we can try it. And this should fix our initial load problems. There we go. Okay. Then we need to fix this other problem. Loaded 0 history messages from DB, all this UID equals 42. So we're loading 0 messages, and then we do nothing. That is a problem. So we need to fix that. I think chat history get is more complicated, but I guess we'll see. Let's at least trigger the request because we're not even triggering the request right now. So what's happening is that we want to load we want more history. Somehow we load 0 history messages with all this UID being, out of curiosity, if we don't clear the cache, does that cause any issue? No. All this ID being 42, which is kind of fair. But then this becomes none. Why? Somehow it seems we don't find any message. We don't find any of these placeholders. Well, do we have one? I guess the question is. I should not have exited. Actually, select UID and kind from messages. No such column kind. Um, what? Oh no, wait. That's the wrong. Database is locked. Stop locking my database. So what happened here is that yeah, we don't have any message that hints that we might have some history in there, and that causes us to um, not have that message. That is bad. That is bad. Maybe it's a bit random, but why did you choose SQLite? I mean, it's supposed to be self-hosted, so we want to avoid running a separate process for the DB engine. But on the other hand, isn't SQLite like very bad for multi-threading? A messaging application with multiple channels and users on pretty multi-threading for me. I mean, users talk. I don't know. What's a horribly busy Discord server? A message every half a second? That would be insane, right? Imagine the insanity of a message every half a second in every channel in the server. That's still like orders of magnitude below what would give any trouble to SQLite. Guys, computers are fast. They're really fast. Your SQLite can definitely take the weirdest um most heated discussion that you can have in a Discord server, no problem. So don't worry. And even if it starts like being problematic, you can start doing batching on your end. So like there's like even approaches that you can take on your end. But I don't even think I know that historically SQLite has been known for only being able to do one write at a time, right? That kind of stuff. You can work around that a little bit. Um, but I sincerely doubt that the people that were having trouble with that were really, really bottlenecking SQLite. I'm not saying that you can't. You can, obviously, if you want, bottleneck SQLite. But I don't know, maybe if you're trying to run Amazon off of SQLite, I get it. Probably not a good idea. But for a self-hosted chat application, even in the most unhinged Twitch streamers server, I think you're going to be fine. In the older code base org, it would be useful to have a repo that is an index of Zig bindings to Zig built C libraries. Well, projects like repos in all your code base should not contain bindings, but the README of every repo is free to point you at bindings for that repository if the maintainers want to, or so for example, if you have Zig bindings for a repository that is in all your code base, feel free to PR a change that adds to the README a link to your bindings. Okay, how are we fucking this up? God damn it. Why is there no thing with ID 2? With kind 2? Oh, that's why. Because then we override it. Fuck. That was it. We don't even need the debug print. Okay. Oof. That was on me. Is there an easy way in the new IO file to open a file for appending writing at the end? Um, so I haven't used these APIs myself. What I can tell you is that you need to be careful because you have two types of writers, positional and streaming. I would assume that the streaming writer, if you open a file, normally would append at the end. Question mark. I'm actually not sure. Um, but yeah, one manual way of doing it is you what Amarki is suggesting you have stat. Um, there's not because you need two syscalls. Okay, so then never mind. That does not work. Then you need to do fstat plus positional writer. For example, there are no WASM repos in all your code bases, but there is a WASMer bindings Zig library. Hmm. Hmm. I understand your point. I wouldn't put it in all your code base though. That's fine, but bindings are really not the same as a build script. Bindings are nice to have, I guess, but you can definitely make do without them. Actually, sometimes you could even argue it's preferable. Okay, let's see if we can do the magic. There we go. Such a silly mistake. Okay, now here's the problem. We scroll down and we're stuck at 62. Chat panel pushing new message 83, 84, 69, 80. Chat panel pushing new message. Huh. Well, that's not good. I feel like there's some tiny detail that I fixed for the other side that I got wrong on this side. But we're getting there, man. Okay, we are so close. These are like the last few things that we need to fix. Once we fix those, it's gonna be bliss. Finally gonna be bliss. Select chat present. Well, here's the question that we can answer now. Oh boy. We leaking. Yeah, we were leaking a bit. It's fine. We have 100 messages. Yes. Do we have a message with a 2 in it? No. Just going for completeness. Okay. So this is actually correct state. This is actually fine. Why are we failing to load newer messages? We look at the newest message that we have. Oh, you know what's interesting actually? Wait, oldest UID. Oh, we use it here. Okay. Newest UID, we use it here. Okay. Pushing new message. Something, something. If we loaded less than 16 messages and we did not find a missing message thingy, then we got to the end. Otherwise, if we loaded some, we want to lock scroll visible. Actually, maybe we don't want to do this. I'm gonna go look at the code that we have online. I think that maybe we don't want to do this. Maybe. Wait a second. Are we? This might be wrong. Okay, this part might be wrong. Okay, who? What a mind trip. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm getting a little bit tired. I spent the entire day looking at this stuff, and I'm starting to melt. So here's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna call it a day. It's been a good adventure. We're almost there. I figured this out. And we're done. For a while, we don't touch message loading, ideally ever again. But I know it's not gonna be that easy. But for a while, we don't have to touch it. I just need to fix these final use case. So I think I'm going to do this on my own. And so maybe tomorrow's stream is going to be entirely dedicated to looking at macOS screen share and writing weird Objective-C crap. So if you want to see me cry because I don't know Objective-C, I don't understand it, feel free to join. And if you do know Objective-C, on top of having a good laugh, maybe you can also help me get it right. I don't know. So that's what it's going to be. So thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for being patient. We are working for you. We are getting there. Now, by the way, now that we have message loading, well, almost, but once we are going to have message loading, we are going to, I'm going to start trying out this chat with some people. It's not yet ready for a internet facing instance that I can't show this to the public yet because you're going to be able to crash it in half a second. But we can start getting it right. Don't worry. Don't worry, Armagedonium. I'll come back tomorrow. So thank you all, and I'll see you next time.